Has anyone ever told you that you're too quiet? Or maybe you've been in a meeting and wondered what's really going on inside the head of that person who barely says a word? Well, we're about to flip that whole idea on its head. We're going to explore how what we often see as simple quietness might actually be a source of some pretty incredible power.
Seriously, just think about that for a second. What if being quiet isn't a weakness? What if it's not a sign that you're disinterested or don't have anything to say? What if it's actually one of the most powerful strategic advantages you could possibly have in any room, any negotiation, any conversation you walk into? Okay, so before we can really get into the whole superpower thing, we've got to do some myth busting first. Let's talk about the labels and all the stereotypes that have been stuck to quiet people for, well, forever.
I bet these look pretty familiar, right? In a world that just loves to reward the loudest voice in the room, being quiet gets misunderstood. A lot. People see silence and they just, they fill in the blanks. They assume you're shy or aloof, maybe even arrogant. It's an easy assumption to make, but it is so, so wrong. Yeah, what if those labels don't just miss a little bit of the story, but the entire story? What if that quiet exterior, that thing that looks like passivity, is actually hiding some seriously intense activity on the inside? What if the real story isn't about what's not being said, but about what's being heard and absorbed? All of that internal activity, it builds up into a real, tangible advantage. And this brings us to this absolutely fascinating concept called data asymmetry. Now, I know it sounds a little complicated, but trust me, it's a simple and incredibly powerful idea that really gets to the secret science of the silent. Just picture a typical meeting or even a chat with friends. Most people, most of the time, are in broadcast mode, right? They are focused on one thing, transmitting, sending out their thoughts, proving their points, managing how they look, getting their ideas out there. All their energy is flowing one way, out. And this is the game changer. Because while everyone else is busy broadcasting, the quiet person has flipped their switch to receive. They're not just sitting there passively, no way. They are actively, and I mean actively, collecting data. They're listening, they're watching, they're processing all the information that the broadcasters are way too busy talking to even notice.
So here it is. This is the crucial point. By being in receive mode while everyone else is broadcasting, quiet people create what's called a data asymmetry. It just means they know more, period. They have a richer, more detailed understanding of the situation, of the people, of what's really going on under the surface. And this imbalance of information, well, that's the foundation of their power.
So how does this actually work? In the real world, how does a quiet observer build up this incredible advantage? Let's break down how they basically become a walking, talking information vault. I just love this metaphor of a vault. Because think about it. A vault doesn't just hold random stuff. It protects things that are valuable. And that's exactly what the quiet observer is doing. They're collecting and storing high-value information, the kind of stuff that gets completely lost in all the noise of a typical conversation. And what is this valuable information? Well, while the broadcaster is focused on the words they're about to say, the observer is picking up on everything else. The tiny hesitation in someone's voice, the person who's nodding along but their eyes are telling a totally different story, the hidden tensions and alliances in the room. They see the real game that's being played just beneath the surface. Okay, so having more information is one thing. That's great. But the real power, the strategic juice, comes from the fact that nobody else knows you have it. This is what makes the quiet observer so potent. Just look at this contrast. A broadcaster, they put all their cards right on the table. You know what they think, you know what they want. It makes them predictable. It makes them pretty easy to influence. But the silent observer, oh, they're a strategic black box. Because you have no idea what they know or what they're thinking, you can't predict their next move. And that makes them almost impossible to control. This right here is the fundamental rule of this quiet power. It's so simple. The gap between what you know and what you show everyone else, that is your strategic playground. It gives you the space you need to think, to plan, and to eventually act with a level of insight that nobody else in the room can even touch. So look, this isn't just some interesting theory about other people. This is a skill. This is a superpower that you can actually start cultivating in your own life, whether you're a natural introvert or you're an extrovert who just wants to be a lot more effective. And it really boils down to these 3 simple steps. Now, simple doesn't always mean easy, but here they are.
First, you have to consciously shift from broadcasting to receiving. Just observe. Second, fight that urge to fill every single silence. Speak less, but do it with way more intention. And third, when you finally do speak or act, make sure it comes from that place of deep insight that you've been gathering. And let's be super clear about this. The goal here is not to become a monk and never speak again. Not at all. The goal is to make sure that when you do open your mouth, your words land with absolute maximum impact, precisely because they're backed by a better understanding of the situation than anyone else's. It's all about quality, not quantity.
So, I'm going to leave you with a challenge, a little experiment. In your very next meeting, your next phone call, your next dinner with friends, just try it. For a few minutes, go into full-on observer mode. Stop thinking about the clever thing you're going to say next, and just listen. Really listen. What are you going to discover when you open up that vault of silence?